They continue to have consequences, and on back everything that's been happening here, joining the conversation, offering some insight and perspective. Once again, the managing editor, The Ordinary Times, host of Heard Tell, Andrew Donaldson. Andrew, what do you make of this mess?
Good to be back with you. Well, this is pretty simple. If things aren't going well with you, you have two options. You can either own it, or you can find something that's worse than you, more bad than you, that's more scary than you, and start pointing at that thing and go, hey, look how bad that is, and then tangentially try to make yourself look better than you are. That's what's going on here. The president doesn't have a whole lot to point to that's positive. He doesn't have very many accomplishments at all. Things are not going well for him in just about any area you can point to. So we got to have a bad guy that's bigger, meaner, and worse than anything he's doing to point to. So he's trying to kind of take some tropes and memes and kind of create one out of whole cloth here. I don't think it's going to work.
Agree with those points. And speaking of things that might not work, coming up an hour from now, I'm going to get into my top 3 takeaways. And the theme of my takeaways today, political miscalculations. Andrew, I wanted to ask you about what I think might be a political miscalculation. Obviously, the left, they have been desperate for something that would be their catalyst, that would be their COVID this year, something that they could rally around, or, like the race baiting of 2020 in addition to COVID. And that is now Roe v. Wade. It is now abortion. Question is, are the politics in this country really as they perceive them to be? Or is this something that could actually backfire on them?
Well, we've got some data on this. Here's one for you. We know about a third of the Senate is up for election in this midterm, right? Do you know how many Democratic Senate candidates are running commercials that feature abortion? 1. In all the polling data that we have on issues that are important in this election, abortion has consistently been at the very bottom. The latest AP poll about 3 weeks ago on issues, it didn't even register. It was so low. Now, that's going to change because it's back in the headlines, so it'll bump back up. But that goes to show you that while this is an important issue, it's a very hot issue. It's focused mostly on things like fundraising and engagement in your party. So what's going to happen is, they got it. We saw the numbers. They got a lot of money on Tuesday. Fundraising went up for the Democratic Party. Planned Parenthood had a huge jump in fundraising. But those are people you already have in. The thing about the abortion debate, those are already the most engaged people you've got. And when you're going to try to win elections, especially an election that's going against you, you need to expand outwards. They're going to their very core of their base with this issue. That's not expanding out. That's not going to expand their electorate. And in a midterm election where it looks like they're going to basically get trucked, I don't think this is going to help at all. I think it could very well hurt, especially if they get into a lot of hyperbole over, because what's going to happen is, remember, this stuff's all automatic. It's going to go to the states. We have 26 states that already have their legislation in place. 13 of those are trigger laws. They're automatic. The rest are either at a future date or the legislation has to do something to trigger them. We're going to be discussing this all summer, but it's not going to be the skyfall. It's going to be a legal process over months and months. So if they start with the skyfalls and then it turns into a legal process, and by the way, that legal process is going to look a lot like what we did before. We're just going to start all over again, relitigating all this again. When it doesn't match, the rhetoric doesn't match that sky is falling stuff, yeah, I think it could hurt them. I think they're going to overplay their hand, and I don't think it's going to help them outside of their own base.
Talking with Andrew Donaldson of The Ordinary Times. Andrew, so on point with what you're talking about. Some of the data I'm going to get into butts right up against some of the themes you were just discussing. I'll just take one poll earlier this week from Fox News that I thought was pretty insightful about the level of understanding and also where most Americans happen to be at this point. So if you take a look at the question of Roe v. Wade specifically, close to 70% in that poll said, yeah, we think it should remain intact. But then when you ask follow-up questions, like, for example, well, do you believe that abortion should be banned after 15 weeks? Same group of people. You got 54% that say, yes, we think abortion should be banned after 15 weeks. Only 41% that say, no, we don't think so. And what that really would show is that there's a disconnect. No doubt you got a bunch of Americans that really don't even know the implications of Roe v. Wade. I mean, they think they do, but they don't really understand that, hey, if this goes down, it gets kicked back to the states. And then what I actually want is the policy that can be made if it isn't already by my state.
Yeah, I think you're taking the right angle on this because remember, there's the legal part of this, which is the case law. We live in a country where something like 60% of the country can't name the three branches of government, let alone the
Right.
usage of the Supreme Court, let alone a Supreme Court justice, let alone the case law that goes into something like Roe v. Wade. They have no idea about Roe v. Wade. They have no idea about Casey versus Planned Parenthood. They have no idea about Griswold versus Massachusetts, which is the contraceptive law that started the whole thing going towards Roe v. Wade in the first place. They don't know any of that. What they've heard is 40 years of the culture war stuff on both sides because that fuels fundraising, it fuels engagement, it fuels elections, that makes and breaks candidates. So they just know the buzzwords and they just know the noise from the news media on this, and they don't understand what the process is getting ready to happen, which is legislative, black and white, laws, courts, another long process. That's the stuff they're not going to pay attention to, and it's going to confuse a lot of those folks. So when you go to a poll, if you ask it well, do you think a woman should have a right to her own body? Well, everybody's going to answer that a certain way. When you start asking specific questions, and I think you're right to point this out, you get into the nitty-gritty of it, those numbers change quickly. It depends on how you ask the questions. It depends, including who you ask that question to, because everybody's going to hear that differently based on what they know, and not everybody has a good knowledge on this topic. I think you're absolutely correct here.
Andrew, one more for you, and that is the investigation into the Supreme Court leaker. You have confidence in this process?
I do, and let me caveat it just a shade. We don't know anything, and I know people. There's only about 45 people this could be. This was not one of the justices. This is one of the clerks. We know it was a clerk because the document that was late, remember right at the top it said first draft, and it was highlighted in yellow, and it had the routing stamp on the top where the justices would all say, yes, I've reviewed this. There's only 45 people that would have that because that's a private document. The greater staff and the rest of the court, a janitor didn't find that in a trash can to stop all that. There's 45 people. They're going to figure it out quick because the Supreme Court, for their own benefit, would have to out this person and get rid of them. Let's assume for a second it was a progressive. I don't know this. This is assuming because it makes more sense for a progressive person to have released this than a conservative. They've ended their legal career, and it's a big deal to be a Supreme Court clerk. Remember, almost all our justices were Supreme Court clerks. It's the elite of the elite. So for the person to make the calculation to do this, that means they have already decided, because if they're a progressive person that did this, they're going to be sainted the second this happens. They'll lose their legal career, but they're going to have book deals, they're going to have movie deals, they're going to be Bernstein would be a good way to do it, for doing Deep Throat. You just become an icon for all time for doing this. That's what this person's going to be. It went to Politico. That doesn't go to Bob's Gazette and wherever. This is somebody that had a relationship. I would bet money, just because I do media and writing, they've already contacted legal representation. They probably already have an agent involved. They went to a specific person to release it a certain way. You've done this a long time. You know how this works. Politico has people they work with when they go to do book deals and stuff like that. These things are integrated networks. We're going to find out pretty soon who this is, and this person, if it's a progressive person, is going to become an icon for the progressives immediately. They're not going to be missing any meals. They're going to lose their legal career. They're going to be fine. They're going to have a nice big fat golden parachute. So yeah, I think we're going to know pretty soon who this is and all their full motivation. Probably, I don't know if the Supreme Court would release it before or after the actual decision comes out. I don't know if they want to Bigfoot themselves like that. We'll have to wait and see, because this is unprecedented. They've never had to do this. But yeah, we're going to find out, just because there's too many people's own interest, and this person's going to want to cash in pretty soon. So yeah, we're going to find out who it is pretty shortly.
Great insight, as always, from Andrew Donaldson, The Ordinary Times. Also, check out Heard Tell. Appreciate it, Andrew.
Great being back with you again. Look forward to doing it again in the future.
Sounds good. Be right back. Brian Mudd Show, News Radio 6.